In this episode, I talk about WordPress tips for course creators.
Welcome to the Online Course Coach Podcast, brought to you by TrueFocusMedia.com. Whether you're a beginner or expert, this is the podcast for the latest in online course creation tips, news, interviews, and ideas. And here's your coach, Jeff Long.
Welcome back to another episode of the Online Course Coach Podcast. And today we have a really fun episode because I know many of you use WordPress for your website, for your blog, for your company, and even to host your courses. And so I want to talk about some of the details with that, since I've been developing WordPress websites since before 2008. So it's been a while. But if this is your first time listening to the podcast, again, my name is Jeff Long, and we talk about different aspects of course creation. And it's not overly marketed or spammy. It doesn't make you feel yucky. You know how some of those different online marketers might seem a little too slick. We just give really good and honest advice here. And, this to me is something that we're in for the long haul, not just to get a bunch of people in the door, try to sell a course, and then move on to the next thing. So if this is your first time, welcome, and thanks for listening to the show. Hey, before we get into the WordPress tips for course creators, I want to talk about something that's encouraged me, and I hope it encourages you. Recently, I was down in Nashville at my mastermind group. There's about 30 or 40 of us in there. And Dan Miller is one of the leaders of that group. And he challenged us at a recent mastermind where he was going through some challenges, some unexpected challenges in his own business. And his philosophy is, what does this make possible? And it was very interesting. Some of the challenges, it wasn't like he got to pick what those challenges were. They were imposed on him for some things he's been doing in his business. Some people came in and said, it has to be like this or that, or legally it has to be like this or that. And he said, hey, what does this make possible in my business? He could have sat back. He could have shouted. He could have cried. He could have given up, but he didn't. And so just a few weeks ago, I had a recent unexpected challenge in my business that I could have quit out of frustration. I could have cried or done many things, and I wanted to. It was very stressful. It was very taxing. But I kept asking myself, hey, what does this make possible? And that really opens up your mind to think about different solutions that you might not have thought about. So let's say you had a course and there weren't as many students as you were hoping. Well, what does that make possible? Well, maybe you need to build your audience. Maybe you need to market it differently, or maybe you just need to market it. Maybe you need to reach out to influencers to see, how you could create a version 2 that would benefit them and their audiences. So what does it make possible with what you're going through right now? It might be an unexpected challenge. It might be something that's devastating in your life. It might be something that's just annoying, but ask yourself, what does this make possible? And that is a hard question. When you're going through those hard times in life, sometimes you do just want to sit back and cry, sit back and give up, sit back and just not move ahead. But ask yourself, what does this make possible? So I hope that encourages you as much as it encouraged me when I first heard it from Dan. Hey, in other news, I'm coaching several new people, and I'm excited to see their progress. Maybe I'll share some of their progress on here if I get their permission. And it's interesting, each one of them needs something different. One of them just needs help clarifying their course, the content. They have ideas for websites and marketing and the course content. And they've realized they just need to slow down, get somebody's experienced opinion and ideas and coaching in order to move forward. Somebody else has a course idea and they want coaching on the concept. They need a website and learning management system built out, and they need some other things long-term with marketing, with strategy, with ongoing coaching. And so that's really exciting as well. And then a third one is helping a client build a large revenue stream because they want to create really an online university with many courses, multiple instructors, and they have the influence, the knowledge, and experience that can make that happen on the content delivery side. But they need somebody like me and my company that can help deliver that. So I'm really excited to start with those. It's been an influx the last couple of weeks, which has been a lot of fun just seeing them. And then also a lot of you have emailed or corresponded through Twitter, which is always fun. So keep those messages coming. It's been an honor talking with you on those. But hey, let's dive into the topic today of WordPress tips for online course creators. And, I thought it was important to talk about WordPress specifically, since I know many of you use WordPress as your website platform. And it might be just as to showcase your company, your blog. A lot of you even host your courses and deliver your courses on it. I've used WordPress in all of those aspects. And I get a lot of questions about WordPress, and I thought I'd address a lot of them in this podcast. So like I said in the beginning, I've been creating WordPress websites since 2008, maybe even a little bit before that, I believe. And a fun little tip, the reason I learned WordPress was because I wanted to start a podcast. And it wasn't in this exact industry. It was in a parallel industry, but I had a lot of fun. I think I had 75, maybe even 100 episodes. Got to teach a lot of people and had a lot of fun. So the reason for me learning WordPress was to start a podcast. And then once I did that, I became quite proficient at it and added that to my services with my company, got to help a lot of people. And now I have a small team around me that helps with website design, development, maintenance, and support, which is a lot of fun. So my goal with this episode is to really give my best tips, strategies, details, resources, links, plugins, themes, hosting, all of that stuff in one episode. That way it can be a resource. So feel free to share this episode out if it helps you, or if you know somebody that will help with their just general understanding of WordPress and how it relates to course creators and how you can maximize your website. Now, I've put all of these details, resources, links, recommended plugins, my themes, my learning management system plugins, hosting, as well as several in-depth interviews with WordPress course creators. I put all of that together into a PDF for you. So if you go to onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips, you can download that immediately. Get all those links, get all those details. If you're in the car, mowing the lawn, whatever you're doing, going for a jog, just go to onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips, and you can get that immediately. Then you won't have to write all these things down. All right, so let's jump right in. The first thing to realize with WordPress is it is your home base, whether you use it to host your courses or not. The blessing and the curse of having things like Facebook and Twitter and software as a service companies that host your course is, hey, they're great. They're sometimes inexpensive or free, like Facebook is, but they're not your home base. You don't have control over the content, over your subscribers, over your students. And so you want a place where you can control all of that. And using WordPress as your website for your home base or your hub, whatever you want to call it, is what I highly recommend. Partly because it's the easiest platform out there. When I first started, there was a couple softwares called Joomla, Drupal. There's many others, and those are all very good for specific tools and needs and projects. I just think WordPress is the best out there for most users. Now, I've worked with a lot of large corporations, and maybe WordPress isn't a fit, and that's fine. But for many course creators like you and I, WordPress is fantastic. Now, let's talk about real quick the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org. I get this question a lot, especially when I speak at different things for web developers as well as business owners. So WordPress doesn't make it easy on us, okay? So WordPress.com is a free blogging platform that's very basic. So you can sign up for free. You can create your own URL and make it look your own, but you are very limited in the things you do. For instance, you cannot run a podcast like what I'm doing off a WordPress.com website. You cannot install a learning management system and host your own course on a website. So it's very basic. It's good for, if you want to have just a fun blog, it's really good. But if you want to create a website for your business, I highly recommend what's called a self-installation or a self-hosted installation of WordPress. All that means is you have a hosting company and you install the code or the files of WordPress, and now you have your website. So let's talk about hosting. And over the years, I've seen more and more of people's and my clients' websites get hacked. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because they're using cheap hosting. And generally, cheap hosting is anything that's $10 or less, even $15 or less. Generally, it's shared hosting. So think of it this way. Shared hosting is like living in an apartment complex. You don't always know who your neighbors are, what they're doing legally or illegally. And that's different than being a homeowner where you do know, for the most part, who's in your house, who's living there, and what they're doing. Obviously, you can't control everybody in your house, especially if you have teenagers. But the difference between an apartment complex versus being a homeowner is dramatic. So if you are thinking, I'm going to get started, I'll just go to whatever hosting company, pay $3 a month, that's fantastic. I disagree. It could actually hurt you in the long run. It could cause more pain, more frustration, and it might even cause you to give up. So I just don't recommend cheap hosting. And the reason it's cheap is because it's shared and it doesn't have all the benefits of some of the more premium hosting accounts. Now, there are many, many quality hosting companies, and I could give you 5 or 10. The one that I'm using for a lot of my top tier clients and websites, so my own websites as well as some of my corporate websites, is Wpengine. And in the PDF at onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips, you can actually get, I believe it's 2 months for free with Wpengine. They are a website that's specifically geared towards WordPress, and I've been using them for several years. They have excellent support. You get on chat, you're talking to them within 2 or 3 minutes. They're always helpful. I believe they're always based in the U.S. I can't guarantee that. You can call them, and it's amazing. Now, I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, Jeff, I've used X, Y, and Z cheap hosting company for years. I've never had an issue." And I say, great. But when you have an issue, because it will happen, you won't know if they'll give good service or not. I've had a couple clients use Bluehost. I'm just going to name it out loud here. And the experience has been terrible. I mean, one thing that happened should have taken, an hour or, let's say a day to identify, talk with them, and fix. It actually took us a week. Chasing our tails, talking to different people, them giving us different reasons on what was going on. Even though my developer knew and I what was going on, they just weren't able to fix it. So we were counting down the minutes until we could switch to a different hosting company. So even though my client had previously had no issues, once we did have an issue, it was a deal breaker. And so I've moved several people off there. I've heard, and you can, name the hosting company. I've heard, 100 people say GoDaddy is amazing and 100 people say GoDaddy's terrible. But just know that generally if you're paying cheap prices, you're going to pay in one way or another. It might be because you're on shared hosting. It might be because the service isn't good. It might be, a myriad of other things. So that is my number one tip is don't have cheap hosting. Now, the next thing is let's talk about themes versus plugins. So when you're looking for a theme, and in WordPress language, a theme is just the design of your website. So the layout, the design, how it looks, that is what you want a theme to do. And then WordPress has things called plugins. Those are the functionality, the cool stuff that your website does. So maybe it's a plugin that has a gallery of pictures. Maybe it's a plugin that lets you have a customized form on your contact page, and it's really customized and really amazing. Or maybe it's a plugin that backs up your website or keeps it secure or lets you podcast or lets you do an online course. You get the idea. Plugins give you functionality. Themes give you layout and design. Now, one thing I see beginners struggle with is they find a theme. Maybe it's free, maybe it's paid, and it does everything all within the theme. Well, what happens when you change the theme? Because it's probably going to happen. If you change your theme, all of that functionality that theme maker built into the theme, so maybe it's a slider, maybe it's a form, maybe it's a short code, maybe it's whatever, that's going to break because you've removed the theme. So you want your theme separate from your plugin. So it's okay if your theme doesn't look as glamorous as some of the demo themes out there, because your content is what's going to drive the value of your website. So let's talk about free versus cheap themes. There are a lot of free themes in WordPress. So once you install WordPress, or you can go online and just search WordPress themes, go to wordpress.org, and then on there they have different themes that either WordPress makes or thousands of others make. And there are some good ones. I personally like paid themes because I want the theme developer to stick around. I want them to support the theme and answer my questions if I have any. I want them to update the theme, maybe add something new or patch security holes, but I want it to be something that my money helps pay their bills so that they are in it for the long run. Now, one of the themes I highly recommend, and I've been using them, since 2008, is Genesis themes, or the Genesis framework. And then there are StudioPress child themes. And I don't want to go into all the details, because if you just go to studiopress.com, you can learn more. They are fantastic. They have, probably 20, 30, 40 different themes you can pick from. You can buy one of them or you can buy all of them. I've purchased all of them in different, pro packs that they've had. And the Genesis framework is pretty much what I develop on and what my company develops on with WordPress. So it's very developer friendly. It's very clean code, and it's something I highly recommend. Now, one thing I don't recommend is there are different there are different websites that sell WordPress themes. And I just get nervous with those because, again, it's easy to make a website or a theme look amazing, right? You put in cool photos and videos and graphics and all that. But when you get it on your website, it doesn't look as good because it doesn't have the exact customizations. So, stick with one of the big theme makers, iThemes, StudioPress. There are several others, but make sure that they have a lot of ratings and reviews. Make sure that, even if it's expensive, some of the Genesis themes, I believe, are $50 to $100, which technically to me, that's not that expensive. It's definitely worth it. But you have to weigh the pros and cons. If this is your business, you want it to look good. I'm all about being cheap and saving money, trust me. But there's a time and a place where being cheap really hurts you in the long run, especially if this is your business. You want your business and your website to be a marketing tool. And if it looks kind of homemade, then people are going to expect that your business and your services are kind of homemade and not valuable. So with any theme, with anything with WordPress, whether it's a plugin, a theme, there's always new different things that integrate with WordPress, different marketing tools. Different email marketing tools. I like to call them software as a service items. So with any of those, be wary if they're slickly marketed, and it's really okay to give it time and see what other people use and recommend, and then move ahead. Because really your goal in business is to make money and not be a guinea pig for something new. So it's really okay if you're not on the bleeding edge of technology. I had somebody remind me of this, and even though I love technology, I'm in the technology business, and I love trying out new tools that can help you guys, but there is a point where I don't want to be on that bleeding edge. I want to use what works, what's established, and what will make me money quickly. So just be thinking of that. Don't feel like you have to get, if you're on MailChimp and everybody's talking about ConvertKit, which I love ConvertKit, and I've moved several people from MailChimp to ConvertKit. Don't feel like you have to move to ConvertKit or else you're going to go out of business. No, it's just a tool. It's just a tool. So, take people's advice and weigh that with what you're able to do. And do you have time to research and learn a new system? Would it be easier to hire a coach, or maybe just easier to go with the system that you already have in place? So all that goes with, any theme, plugin, software as a service that you find. All right, so let's talk about plugins. Now, there are many free plugins, and they're fantastic. The only place I look for plugins, the main place I look for plugins is the plugin repository on WordPress.org. So if you go to WordPress.org and look at their plugins, they have thousands, probably tens of thousands or more of plugins. And just like with themes, make sure that you look at the ratings, reviews, when it was at last updated, and what people are saying. Because you can fall into a trap of finding a plugin that you think is perfect, and then it's just not quality. Now, WordPress does review plugins before they go into their plugin repository, almost like the Apple App Store reviews apps. However, things can slip through. Maybe the code isn't as clean as a developer, should have it. So, like I said, make sure you look at the ratings, the reviews, when it was last updated, and how many people have downloaded it. If 100 people have downloaded it and it's been out for 2 years, I'd stay away from it. If 10,000 people have downloaded it in the last couple years and it has 4.5 stars, that's going to be a good one. Go with that one. All right. So the plugin repository is a great place. Now let's talk about some of my top recommended plugins. I'll just give you a few here because I could go on and on for days, but I'll just give you my top one. So my top one that I install on every website of mine, as well as my clients, is Backup Buddy. Now, this is made by a company called iThemes, which I interviewed the owner of iThemes. And Corey Miller, which is the owner of iThemes, is an amazing guy, man. I mean, just high integrity, good business owner, creative, just a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun to talk with. He has a plugin, and his company has a plugin called Backup Buddy. This is my number one favorite plugin. I have bought it and renewed it, I think, every year since I found out about it, which might have been 2008, 2010. I think, have the gold membership, which is I get it for life type of thing, but it is something that I highly recommend because you can back up your website and you can back it up off of your server. So your server is just your hosting account, made simple. But you can back it up to Dropbox or Amazon S3 or other services, and that is like putting your money in a bank versus putting your money under your mattress. If your house burns down and your money is in your mattress, well, that's not a good thing. Just like if your backup is on your own hosting account, your own server, and if something happens, that's not a good thing. So store your backups off-site, Amazon, Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. And Backup Buddy makes it so easy, not just to back it up, but to restore it. You can duplicate your site and put it on other domains and then customize it. So there are a lot of things you can do. The backup is the most important, and there are other backup plugins available, but make sure that you know how to restore, because I've had people use cheap plugins that do backups, but the restore process was a nightmare or worse. So don't fall into the prey of cheap, because later you're going to regret it. All right, the next one is also by iThemes, and it's called iThemes Security. And I believe they have a free version. I love the paid version because I want to treat my websites like they're important, and so it's well worth the money. iThemes Security helps you keep your website secure. So it goes through a process of checking your website, both initially and ongoing, to make sure your website is secure. And like I said, I've seen an influx of people's websites getting hacked, but with iThemes Security Pro, you can dramatically reduce that. I mean, just dramatically by what they have in their plugin. So the two things to help avoid getting hacked are good hosting, not shared cheap hosting, and then this security plugin. And there are other security plugins. WordFence I used to use for a long time. It's really good. I just like iThemes Security Pro. To me, it's kind of the top tier. Another one is Gravity Forms. Another plugin I love to use for building forms is Gravity Forms. This is a paid plugin as well, and I'll give some free ones here in a minute. It lets you do custom contact forms, not surveys, but it lets you create these robust forms. I have a couple websites where the forms themselves are so complicated that we had to custom build them using Gravity Forms, and it makes it a breeze. So I highly recommend Gravity Forms. The next one is Leadpages, the Leadpages plugin for WordPress. So if you're like me and you create lead pages, which you can see an example with onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips, you can, once you publish that lead page, you can download a plugin, install it on your website, and then have a customized link, just like onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips. It's a custom link using the Leadpages plugin for WordPress. Another plugin that I recommend that's free is Yoast Seo. Now, when I was typing this into my notes, it kept auto-correcting Yoast to Toast. All right, so think of that. It's Yoast with a Y. Yoast Seo is great. You install it. It's free. It's in the WordPress plugin repository, and it gives your blog post and your content a rating based on the SEO quality. So, you want that green light. It has green, yellow, red. You want that green light, and I wouldn't stress about every blog post being perfectly SEO optimized, but you should consider it. You should have it be as many green as you can without losing too much sleep. Another plugin I recommend is called Pretty Link, because when you are creating, let's say, blog posts or anything for the general public, you want the title to be very descriptive. So, the title for this podcast is WordPress Tips for Online Course Creators. And it might even be the best WordPress tips for online course creators. We'll see. But that's a hard link to share. If I said, hey, go to onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress-tips-for-online-course-creators, you'd get a headache and black out and not pay attention to what I just said, right? I almost did the same thing. But Pretty Link lets you create a simple link that you can share. So you might just say, hey, go to onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress course creators, or whatever, WordPress or tips or the number 7, whatever you want it to be. You can make it as simple, as easy to read, or as complex as you need it. So Pretty Link is fantastic. And there are two versions, the free version and the paid version. Honestly, I use the free version and I haven't upgraded yet, and I've been using it for quite a while. So Pretty Link is fantastic. Now, if you do podcasting like what I do, Blueberry PowerPress for podcasting is my recommended favorite. I've been using it since 2008 for different podcasts, both with myself as well as I've set up clients for their podcast, and it is something I highly recommend. It's free. Another free plugin is Discuss, and this is for commenting. If you are a blogger or if you want people to comment on the content of your website, Discuss is better than the built-in commenting system that WordPress has. So it's really good. It's robust. There's a lot of options, and I highly recommend it. And then the last one I'm going to recommend is called User Switching. And this is helpful to troubleshoot if a student has a question. I manage a client's website, and they have a lot of students coming through their courses. And me and my team, when we manage these different things, it's so easy for us just to switch over to that student's account to, in essence, log in as them so we can troubleshoot the issue and try to see what they're seeing. So User Switching is a really good plugin. And then lastly, let's talk about some learning management system plugins. So how do you create courses on your WordPress website? Well, firstly, let's say there are many software as a service companies, such as Teachable and Rizuku and Thinkific And I mean, I could go on and on. There's probably hundreds of software as a service, course creation services, but you can do this within WordPress. And when I interviewed Corey Miller, we talked about the benefits of building your online course directly in WordPress. And so some of the plugins that I recommend are LearnDash, iThemes makes one called Sensei. Lifter LMS is a free version with paid upgrades or bonus things you can include. There are WP Courseware. There's many other options out there. Those are some of my top ones. There are some that you might come across that kind of look new and maybe they're there. To me, they're there just as a money grab. I would look for a course creation software that not just has a good website, but they've worked with established industries, established organizations, maybe even some schools and universities, because really schools and universities are leading the way with online training. And, some of the online marketers are just understanding the power of online courses. So make sure that your learning management system plugin isn't too slick and isn't primarily just about marketing, because really your course is mainly about teaching, right? That's why I hope you're in this online course space, is so you can truly teach. All right, well, those are my WordPress tips for course creators. Again, your website is your home base. It's your hub. So even if you heavily rely on Facebook, on a different platform for your course delivery, whatever that might be, your website is your hub, and WordPress is the best solution. Keep in mind the importance of good hosting versus, cheap shared hosting. We went over the difference between themes and plugins and how themes are your layout and design. Plugins are your functionality. Talked about some of my favorite WordPress themes. And then we talked about all the plugins that I recommend. Now, I know that was a lot of things. If you want this in a simple, easy to follow along PDF, you can go to onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips, where I give, more recommended plugins, themes, learning management systems, hosting, and especially links to in-depth interviews that I've done with WordPress course creators and developers, because then you can get their insights. We could talk for hours on this, and we have with these different in-depth interviews. So again, go to onlinecoursecoach.com/WordPress tips to learn more. All right, that is all for today. It would be fantastic. It would be a big help if you were to do two things. One, share this with a friend. Tag somebody on Facebook, tag somebody on Twitter, email this to somebody, whatever it might be, and let them know that it would help. Again, I've gone over this content many times over the years to many different groups, and these are the common questions I get, especially with course creators. But share this out. And then also, if you would go to iTunes and leave a rating and review, that would be a big help. It gets the word out. It bumps this podcast up a little bit, and it would just show me that you appreciate the show and all the time that goes into creating these shows. You can go to onlinecoursecoach.com/review to leave a rating and review, and I would be honored if you did that. All right, well, thanks again for coming back to another episode of the Online Course Coach podcast. I have a lot of fun doing these. I have some fun interviews coming up in the near future and some additional episodes coming out soon. So keep coming back to the show. Keep creating those courses, even if you're just starting out building your influence, building your platform. Don't get discouraged. Ask yourself, what does this make possible as you're going through your life, as you're going through your business, because that will help open up your mind to create solutions rather than just feeling sorry for yourself. So keep creating, keep teaching, because it's really my goal to help you to teach many, to impact millions.